Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everybody, to your favorite soccer podcast. I am back and ready to give you guys some more exciting news in this world of football, soccer, whatever you guys want to call it. We got a lot of stuff going on. The top 5 leagues are back in action. So we're obviously going to have so much to talk about in this show. And I'm really excited to just get right to it. So let's just, like I said, get right to it. In the first part of the show, I'm going to be recapping match week 1 of the Bundesliga. I'm only going to be missing out on the last 2 matches of the week. But for the most part, we're still going to get that Bayern Munich thrashing of Schalke. We're going to get that, Borussia derby. So we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about in that segment. Next, we're going to be talking about the round 2 of the Carabao Cup, the EFL Cup for the Premier League. Pretty much all of round 2 is done, and round 3 is already set and ready to go next week. So we're going to talk about that. And in segment 3, we're going to be talking about something a little close to me, with like the debacle, the ridiculousness that's going on at PSG right now. Just going to talk about what's going on so far in their season and what do they need to do to turn this around for them. And of course, in the last segment of the show, we're going to be talking about the top 10 strikers in the world. That's actually going to be finishing it up for my positional series of, the top 10s. So I'm wondering what we're going to do coming up next with my top 10s. I'm kind of thinking about it, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. So let's get right to it, talking about the Bundesliga match week 1. And what better place to start than Bayern Munich? They're the best team in the world for a reason, guys. Bayern Munich absolutely demolished Schalke 8-0. And, honestly, this is 2 teams heading in opposite directions. Bayern Munich are looking about as good as I can even ever remember them. Like I've said, we've known that I haven't been a fan, for decades. It's just maybe 1 decade I've been a fan. And in that time, Bayern Munich has never looked this good. Even when they had Robben, Ribéry, with obviously Müller and Lewandowski, looking good, they just never looked this together, this dominant, and once again, they're just showing it. They dominated Schalke in possession. They had 21 shots to their 5, and and 11 shots on target. So only 3 of those shots got saved by the goalkeeper. So obviously not a great night for that goalkeeper in Schalke. But just overall, they just dominated. And the thing that I like to look at when I'm looking at stats, when you look at tackles, you look at aerials, interceptions, even when your team is dominating the other, if you're even able to get near or, even exceed those stats, that shows that not only are you, you have more quality than the other side, but you're also putting in more effort. And that's what they showed. And that's one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts about PSG. We're going to get into that later. But they won 8 aerials. I'm talking about Bayern Munich. They won 8 aerials to Schalke's 6. and they intercepted 13 of their balls to 11 for Schalke. I mean, when Bayern Munich have so much more possession, it should be the other way around. Schalke should have way more opportunities to intercept the ball, to win aerials and just try to get back to this game, but it does not matter for them because it's just Bayern are just that good. They're that well managed. Flick is just has them working on all cylinders, and I mean they're just unbelievable. And then when you look at the spread of goals, I mean Gnabry had a hat trick, scored early on in the game, and then got 2 right after halftime. Both of those 2 after halftime were assisted by Sané, who just had an amazing debut for Bayern Munich. I mean, he also got a goal in the 71st minute. Thomas Müller scored. Robert Lewandowski obviously got on the score sheet with a penalty, which he drew. And Lewandowski also got 2 assists. And then I cannot forget Kimmich, who's just like a mastermind in that midfield. I mean, that the move to midfield for Kimmich was just an absolutely underrated one. And I mean, that guy is just, it's ridiculous what he does. He got 2 assists in this game, and Müller also picked one up, leading to what was an amazing season last year, and just following that up, which is what is probably going to be another amazing season for Bayern Munich. So this actually marked their 22nd win in a row. 22 matches, 22 wins. That includes obviously the Champions League, all of Bundesliga. Like, it's just, this team is unstoppable. And like I said, leading up into the preview, I mean, they're the favorites. Obviously, I mean, if you don't have them as favorites, you don't know what you're talking about. And the team we're going to be talking about next is also really, really good, but just nowhere near the kind of quality and togetherness and composure that Bayern Munich show on a night-to-night basis. Now, the man of the match in this game, you had a lot of guys to choose from. Leroy Sané, obviously, with his goal, 2 assists. Kimmich just absolutely like controlling that midfield and passing it to whoever, and getting everybody in their position. But this game has to go to Gnabry. I mean, that guy was just unstoppable in this game. Hat trick. He was always in the right spots at the right time, just always, and that's honestly, in my opinion, has nothing to do with luck. Obviously, sometimes it does, but he is just such a smart player. He knows where to be when he needs to be there, and he's also an excellent passer. He completed 86% of his 35 passes, and he had the most touches in the box. So he was one of the most active players on the field for Bayern Munich. So that's going to wrap it up for Bayern Munich. Next, we're going to be talking about the Borussia Derby with Borussia Dortmund against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Borussia Dortmund came out on top 3-0, and I said Borussia like 5 times there. It's just like, it's a lot of Borussias, guys. A lot of Borussias. But now I'm just going to be going with Dortmund and Mönchengladbach, so you don't have to hear that anymore. But Dortmund, this was actually a much closer game than the final score actually tells. Obviously, Dortmund won 3-0, but Mönchengladbach were right there. I mean, the possession was pretty much even. They each had about the same amount of shots. Passing accuracy was like right there, 87% to 88% for Mönchengladbach. And aerials, I mean, Mönchengladbach was absolutely like out hustling them in that regard. They had 9 aerials to Dortmund's 0. So, which I don't even know how that's possible with all the length that they have, and Haaland on the team and all that. But the main difference in this game was the fact that Dortmund just had way too much individual quality up top. When you got Giovanni Reina, Erling Haaland, Jadon Sancho, Jude Bellingham, I mean, those guys, and each of them had a hand in a goal in this game. Reina scored his first goal in the Bundesliga. The youngest, or the second youngest American to ever score in the Bundesliga, behind, of course, Captain America, Christian Pulisic. And Erling Haaland got a penalty in the 54th minute, and then, of course, scored a really, really nice goal, assisted by Sancho in the 77th minute. So when it came down to having to get a goal, Dortmund obviously had the better quality in that final third. And, I mean, it's no surprise. The names that they have on that team. I mean, the fact that they're able to hold on to Jadon Sancho is going to be huge for their, what am I trying to say? Them trying to challenge Bayern Munich for for the title, which I don't think they can. I mean, obviously it'll come down to whether Dortmund can take care of their games, when they're not taking on Bayern, because obviously those games you never really know. It can go either way, but Dortmund need to handle all those other matches, against RB Leipzig, against Stuttgart, against Wolfsburg. It doesn't matter who they think. They need to get as many points as they can there, because of course when they go up against Bayern, it's going to be a really hard one to win, even to get a draw. Obviously but honestly in this game, it was just, in all honesty, it was a lot of Dortmund. It was a lot of Dortmund. They were just getting to the ball quicker, especially when they're talking on defense. I was really impressed with the way they were playing. 17 clearances for Dortmund to Mönchengladbach's 3. I mean, Mönchengladbach just couldn't get the ball out of their own third. But again, in the end, what it came down to was the fact that Dortmund just had far too much quality for Mönchengladbach to handle. And that, in the end, was what gave them the win. When you see what Jude Bellingham and Giovanni Reina can do for Dortmund, this is an exciting team. I've said it so many times that Dortmund just have possibly the best young talent at all times in the world, usually rivaling Ajax. But, I mean, it's kind of starting to... It's always been Dortmund. They've always been... energized by the youth and just how much talent they have in that side, and honestly, I don't think there's any bigger year to say that than this one with Haaland. I mean, the guys I've already mentioned. I don't even need to say them again. It's just they just have so much quality there, and just how young they are. The problem is that that's usually what hurts them as well. But they do have some veterans, with Emre Can coming back. They got Matt Hummels in the back. They got Berkey at the goalkeeper spot, and Ruiz, who was injured last season, and he's coming back this year. He's not sure if he's probably going to play off the bench, because they usually like to play a lot of young talent. But to have a guy like Marco Ruiz off your bench, that says a lot for your team. In the end, the man of the match, I had to give it to Erling Haaland. I mean, this kid he gets goals, man. He had 2 goals in this one. He had a successful dribble, 4 recoveries, completed 95% of his 19 passes. His link-up play is excellent. Something that is very underrated for him. But the main thing is that this kid can just get goals on a regular basis, and he just continues to do that in the Bundesliga. And when he's able to just continue to just flat out score, Borussia Dortmund are going to be in a lot of these games. And the fact that he has so much playmaking talent behind him, he's not going to have any shortage of opportunities to, match and obviously exceed his goal scoring output from last season. Next, we got SC Freiburg versus Stuttgart. Freiburg escaped with a 3-2 victory over Stuttgart, and I mean, this was one that Stuttgart needed to win. They had far more possession, 64%. They had 26 shots to Freiburg's 7. And, I mean, overall, they just looked like the better team. Even winning in terms of aerials, 21-14 for Freiburg. And you just can't have that. You can't be having that much possession, having that many opportunities, and not coming away with anything in the end. I mean, they did have 2 goals, but that was towards the end. Freiburg were up 3-0 before Stuttgart even had even answered in the 74th minute. You just can't have that. You need to be, getting regular goals, and just being on top of, because what I'm trying to say is that if you're putting the pressure on these teams, you need to come away with goals. You can't have 26 shots and just have 7 of them on target. That's just not going to cut it. I mean, Freiburg, I did have Freiburg as one of my surprise teams in the German league this year, so I'm obviously happy to see them win 3-2. They looked great last year, and of course, their all-time leading scorer, Niels Petersen, gets on goal, and he even had a part in the second one with a ridiculous back heel that almost went in, but then the rebound was just there for Salai. So he was just unbelievable. But Roland Salai also getting an assist. So they made it happen when they needed to. Out of those 7 shots, they had 6 on target. So they obviously, it literally the opposite of what Stuttgart did. They took advantage of their opportunities. And on defense, I mean, yes, Stuttgart had more opportunities. But Freiburg had 25 interceptions to Stuttgart's 6. Come on. That's just bully ball. You can't be letting that, like you're getting these opportunities, but you're giving the ball away like almost every other possession. You know, that just can't happen. But for my man of the match in this one, I went with Roland Salai because of the goal and assist that he had in this game. But aside from that, he also was very active on the defensive end. He had a tackle. He was 3 of 5 on aerials, 7 of 18 on duels. So he was very active in this game and caused a lot of problems for Stuttgart. But in the end, I mean, even though I do have Freiburg as one of the surprises, like I said, they need to improve off this performance because Stuttgart is not one of the better teams in the German league. I mean, yes, they have they have some solid quality. They play well as a team, but you give up 64% possession to one of these high-quality sides in the Bundesliga, and you're most likely losing this game. So the fact that they were able to get 3 points here and start off very well, start off with 3 points in this new campaign is a strong start for them, but they just definitely need to improve. Next, we have newly promoted side Arminia versus Eintracht Frankfurt. And Arminia got a draw in this game, 1-1. And they also suffered in possession. They only had 38% possession in this game, but they did have 13 shots to Frankfurt's 18, so it was pretty even there. And in the passing accuracy, there was 71% possession for Arminia and 80% for Frankfurt, so it wasn't really that big of a difference there. The only thing is that Frankfurt were just getting a lot of opportunities in the final third. They were constantly putting pressure on Arminia, and usually for a newly promoted side like this, you see it rattle them. But that was something that I didn't see. I was actually very impressed with the way they handled it, and they got a lot of interceptions, 20 to Frankfurt 16. Clearances, they were very active there. They had 27 to Frankfurt 17. And when you look at how many crosses Frankfurt had in this game, they had 36 crosses to Arminia's 12. So they were obviously, working very hard to get the ball inside the box. It was just that Arminia were just playing very well and were just, holding their ground and making sure that they didn't give up another goal. And in this game, they actually got on the board first. Arminia scored in the 51st minute by Sebio Soko, I believe would be his name. And unfortunately, Frankfurt did answer right back like 11 minutes later with a goal from Andre Silva. But when you see a newly promoted side like that able to handle the pressure and come away with a draw in their first game in the Bundesliga, I feel like that's a very, very good sign, and a sign that they could possibly make some noise and avoid relegation in this season. So, in terms of man of the match, I had to go with Frankfurt's defender Makoto Hasebe. He was just doing everything for them. He had 92%. He completed 92% of his 86 passes. He had 3 interceptions, 10 recoveries. He was 2 for 2 on tackles, 7 of 10 on duels, and had 6 clearances. He's a big reason why Frankfurt weren't down even more in this game, which they could have been. And, just overall was just a really solid game to see between two of the sides that you normally wouldn't talk about in the Bundesliga. But overall, solid game. Next, we're going to be talking about Augsburg versus Union Berlin. And I loved the story of Union Berlin last year, being newly promoted side, finished like mid-table. Nobody expected that from them because it was their first time in the Bundesliga. And the story from them was just really, really fun to follow. And, with just how impactful or, how passionate those fans are. And I know in German football, all fans are passionate, especially like Borussia Dortmund and the yellow wall and all that. But what you see from Union Berlin is just, a lot of passion, a lot of heart. And in this game, it just kind of wasn't there 100%. Even though they did outperform Augsburg for the most part, they didn't take advantage of their opportunities. And that was actually a problem for them last year because they had to rely on a lot of set pieces because they just couldn't get a really good kick in their final third. They had 15 shots to Augsburg's 9. However, Augsburg had even more shots on target. They had 5 to Union Berlin's 3. You can't have just 3 of your 15 shots on target. But that's how it went down for Union Berlin. And Augsburg were just hanging in there, taking the pressure from Union, and they handled it pretty well. 31 clearances. I mean, Union Berlin just couldn't give that same type of intensity on the defensive end. They only had 7 clearances. So honestly, not a great start for Union Berlin in their second season in the German top flight. They did, like I said, they did what they needed to do, putting pressure on Augsburg and dominating most of this game, but just couldn't get that, most of their shots on goal. From Augsburg, they got 3 goals. One to start it with by Ruben Vargas in the 40th minute. But then Union Berlin were able to answer back with a 75th minute equalizer by Marius Bülter, who had a great game in this one, by the way. The thing is, they just kind of left their foot off the gas pedal. And that's how Augsburg were able to take this game away. Scored 2 goals in the final 10 minutes. You can't have that. You just can't. And the man of the match in this game, I had to go with Raphael Framberger, the defender for Augsburg. He had an assist in this game, completed 76% of his 25 passes, 3 of 4 tackles, 3 of 6 aerials, 5 interceptions, and 5 recoveries. I mean, this man was just all over the place for them, putting in a lot of effort, and honestly, more effort than I saw from Union Berlin. So, huge game for Augsburg, and great way to start the season for them. Union Berlin, they need to step it up if they want to, continue their success in the Bundesliga. Next, we have Hertha Berlin versus Werder Bremen. Hertha Berlin came out on top 4-1 in this one. And the struggles for Werder Bremen just continue. Last year, they were the biggest disappointment, and there's no reason to think anything different from this game. They had more shots compared to Hertha Berlin, 16-13, even though they had less possession, even though it was slightly less possession. The thing is, their defense is just absolutely terrible. There's no connection there, and I have literally no confidence in this Werder Bremen side. I mean, they're very young, but they're not organized, and that's the problem. The man of the match in this game was Matthias Cunha of Hertha. He had a goal, and was just a creative hub for this team while also giving a lot of effort on the defensive end. He completed 5 dribbles, but then at the same time had 4 interceptions and 8 recoveries. I mean, what else can you ask for from a guy who, is one of your best players? And last in the match week 1, we have Hoffenheim versus FC Köln. Hoffenheim came out on top 3-2. Possession was the same, shots were the same. Köln had 1 less shot on target, and the accuracy was pretty even. The biggest difference in this game was the fact that Hoffenheim were just getting more effective in the final third. We're just getting more opportunities. They had 6 corners to Köln's 1, and I mean, honestly, the biggest difference was just the fact that they had more individual quality. Kramaric just continues to just make it seem as if it's nothing to score in the Bundesliga with a hat trick in this one. And the winner that he had at the end of the game, and of course the penalty at the end of the first half, kept this team in the game and ultimately won the game for them. So Hoffenheim needs to thank their lucky stars that they have Andres Kramaric on their side. And he's obviously the man of the match in this game for his hat trick of goals. And so that's going to wrap it up for the first segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, we're going to be talking about the Carabao Cup round 2. So stick around, guys.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everybody. If you missed it in the last segment, we went over quickly each game in match week 1 of the Bundesliga, and in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Carabao Cup round 2, and just quickly recap each game and what happened in each. And of course, we're going to be talking about what the third round matchups are going to be. So let's get right into it. In the first game, we had Millwall defeating Cheltenham 3-1. Millwall had a slight edge in this game, but although Cheltenham was being very aggressive, Millwall just had more quality and were able to get the goals that they needed in the final third. You had goals from Ryan Leonard in the 19th minute, Connor Mahoney just after halftime, and Matt Smith in the 62nd minute. They were up 3-0 before Cheltenham even got their consolation goal in the 69th minute by Finn Azaz. And Mill will go on to the next round. They will be taking on Burnley, a Premier League side that is going to be a tough matchup. But again, Millwall looking really good after the first 2 rounds, and we'll be expecting to make some more noise. Hopefully, just continue. The only thing that sucks is that you just can't have a lot of fans. You can't have any fans in your stadium. So none of these championship sides can really take advantage of moving on to the next round as they usually would in previous years. So make sure to keep that in mind. Next, we had Luton Town defeating Reading 1-0. Reading had way more possession, but just like what I was talking about in the Bundesliga, they just didn't take advantage of that possession. They like to play from the back, and they don't normally move up as much. They like to take advantage of the defense's mistakes and counterattack on that, and that's why Luton Town had more shots. Reading did play a lot of young players in this game and tried getting them a lot of opportunities in order to give them experience, but Luton Town did the opposite, and that's ultimately what gave them this victory. Their goal came kind of early in the game by Jordan Clark in the 24th minute, and this gives them a great ticket to go up against Manchester United in the next round. No one expects them to get past this round, but weirder things have happened. I mean, Manchester United are not looking too good after their loss. Now in technically their first game of the Premier League, and just have not looked good, even though they've revamped their roster. But Luton Town on to the next round and hopefully trying to keep it up. Next, we have Gillingham defeating Coventry in penalties 5-4 after going 1-1 in regulation. Coventry were the better side, but a late time penalty sent this to PKs. Usually the worst way to lose these games is by outperforming your team, the other team, and then giving up a 94th minute penalty. And I watched it. Obviously I looked at the highlights. I wasn't on top of this game, but when you see the way that they gave up that penalty, it's a heartbreaker. And Coventry did look really good. I feel like, this Coventry one of those sides, especially when the way they were looking in terms of, being organized, and then they brought in Maxime BMO off the bench, who probably should have been starting, but maybe he had some fitness issues that he couldn't play a whole 90. But he looked great, and he made an instant impact, scoring in the 61st minute after coming on, I think, at halftime or in the 50th minute. And you just hate to see it. But they did go 5-4 in the penalty kicks, and this is by far not the only one that went to penalty kicks. You're going to be seeing an even crazier one later in this segment. But they go up against Stoke City in the third round matchup, and Stoke City looked really good, defeating Wolves in the second round, which we'll be talking about later. So that's going to be a tough matchup for Gillingham, who honestly got bailed out in this game, because anything can happen in penalty kicks. I understand that this is just the Carabao Cup, so they send it straight to penalties. I personally don't like that, but it is what it is. Gillingham into the next round. Next, we have Barnsley defeating Middlesbrough 2-0. They just overmatched Middlesbrough. Despite the late pressure in this game, they overmatched them. I usually expected more from Middlesbrough because they've had more experience in the Premier League, and are just, in my opinion, a better quality side. But you couldn't tell by watching this game. If you watch the highlights, Barnsley were just consistently putting pressure on Middlesbrough and just had the ball for much more, and they got 2 early goals for it. And that's all she wrote. Middlesbrough did try to come back late in the game. They just couldn't muster a goal. And of course, now Barnsley get the luxury of going against Chelsea, one of the up and coming teams in the Premier League. Who just revamped their roster to add so much talent. So I'm pretty sure Barnsley's Carabao Cup is going to end in round 3, but again, that's why they play the games. You got to see what happens. Next, we had Preston over Derby County, winning 2-1. And Derby County scored on their only shot on target. I mean, if maybe you don't know, but Derby County has the legend Wayne Rooney. And, they just, you would usually expect them when they have someone like that to be the most composed team. But they picked up a red card in the 55th minute. And it was a really bad one. Like, it was one where it was like, what are you doing? Like, you can't commit yourself like that on the tackle. But it happened, and in the 55th minute, they lost one of their defenders. And that's pretty much all she wrote for Derby County, because they scored first. They got a really nice goal in the box by Jason Knight, who was just there waiting to pick out the goal. But then with that man down, they just couldn't handle any of the pressure that Preston was giving them, as they scored twice in the matter of like 13 minutes. One in the 79th minute by Tom Berkhuizen, and another one by Daniel Johnson, which was a penalty. Yes, another penalty given up in extra time, but that's just how she wrote. That's just how it was written in the stars, man. But Brighton are now Preston is now going to be facing off against Brighton, who looked really good in the second round. We're going to be talking about that very soon. I just don't expect much from Preston, even though they'll probably be going into this match feeling really confident, getting 2 goals. But they honestly got very lucky in this game. Derby County looked better. They were more organized, but in the end, getting that 55th minute red card just really kind of sealed the deal for Derby. Next, we have Lincoln City dominating Bradford City 5-0. But honestly, you could say the difference in quality was apparent going in, but Bradford City just beat themselves in this one. They allowed some really terrible free kicks, had an own goal in the 4th minute to start off the scoring, and then gave up another one in the 6th minute. So they were already down 2-0 in the first 6 minutes of this game. And they didn't really allow too many shots. So when it came down to, really buckling and getting stops, they did it. But when they allowed shots, it was kind of like no pressure was put on Lincoln City. They had 8 shots on target off their 10 shots. That's just, you just can't have that. And before halftime, by the time halftime came around, this game was already over. It was 4-0. So Lincoln City are obviously going into the next round very confident, but they're facing off against Liverpool. So I do not give them any confidence whatsoever. But again, who knows? Got to play the game to know what happens. But yeah, Lincoln City goes off into the next round. Next, we got Watford narrowly getting out of this game against Oxford United with a 3-0 in penalties after it going 1-1 in regulation. Oxford United just let this game slip away. Plain and simple. They got an early goal from Robert Hall in the 26th minute, and they put a lot of pressure on Watford. And they could have easily doubled their lead early on in this game. But instead, they gave up a late goal to Ken Sema in the 89th minute and to send this game into penalties. And man, were they disappointing there. They didn't have a single goal in the penalty shootout. And Watford didn't do that much better either. They only had 3. But, I mean, just have to score more than the other team. And Watford, who have been relegated to the championship this season, move on to the third round of the Carabao Cup, and they go up against Newport County. So they'll be hoping that, they do have some solid quality in their side. And they'll obviously feel confident going into the next round, but they did not look good in this game. They got really, really lucky to go into penalties. And then obviously took on a team that just wasn't ready for the moment. So Watford goes on to the next round of the Carabao Cup, and that's that. Next, we got Fleetwood winning 2-1 over Port Vale. Fleetwood just dominated this match and just looked much more poised and organized than Port Vale, even though obviously the score doesn't really say that. It's just the truth. This game was tied shortly after halftime with a 49th minute goal from Danny Whitehead of Port Vale after Paddy Madden got Fleetwood ahead 1-0 in the 14th minute, but it just never felt like it would go into penalties. Fleetwood were just putting constant pressure on Port Vale, and were just living in their final third. So it just felt like just a matter of time before Fleetwood would get that go-ahead goal. And they got it in the 75th minute with a really nice shot from Josh Morris. And honestly, it was a combination of everybody on that team. I think I counted like 3 or 4 headers that led to Morris being, open heading into the box. And just overall, it was really solid team play. The problem is that they now go up against Everton in the next round, and they're hungry. Everton are hungry. After missing out on European competition last season, they have revamped their roster, and they look as good as I can even remember. So, yeah, Fleetwood, even though they're a pretty strong side, I don't expect them to go past Everton. But honestly, if there's going to be an upset, I feel like this would be the one. I feel like Fleetwood possibly getting over Everton, because Everton not using all of their players. I mean, maybe if it goes later into the, maybe in the next round, they'll feel like they'll need to, and they'll use more of their starters. But if they don't, Fleetwood have an opportunity here, and they need to take advantage of it. Next, we got Newport County defeating Cambridge United 1-0. And despite this score just being super close, Newport absolutely dominated this game. They had 29 shots to Cambridge's 6, 6 shots on targets to Cambridge's 0, and they had 72% possession. There was just nothing Cambridge can do. Newport didn't take advantage of a lot of their chances, which is why it was just 1-0. But they did get that breakthrough late in the game with a Scott Twine 80th minute go-ahead goal, and that was all they needed to really get by Cambridge United. They didn't really put up any fight. Obviously, I'm talking about Cambridge United, and they were just fighting a little too above their weight class, man. Just being plain and simple. And now Newport County will go up against Watford in the next round. I know I keep repeating it, but sometimes I'll be repeating matchups because when I go on to talk about a team that I've already talked about, it just happens that way. But yeah, they go up against Watford, and I like Newport County against Watford. I could see them defeating, the new championship side, and if they do, it'll be great for that club. It'll be great, but that would probably be as far as they go. Next, we got Newcastle United defeating the Blackburn Rovers 1-0. Now, Blackburn seemingly dominated most of this game. I mean, they had more possession. I believe they had more shots as well. But they were beat off the counterattack and just couldn't recover. I mean, that's how Ryan Fraser was able to get his 35th minute debut goal for Newcastle. But for the most part, Newcastle just didn't look right in this one. And even though they're going up against a lesser quality side in Morecambe, I probably said that name so wrong, but that's who they're facing off in the third round. I just don't see them having. They just need to correct a lot of their problems. I mean, especially in the defense. Their connection in the final third, it just was not there, and it needs to get better. Now, next we had West Ham United defeating Charlton 3-0. West Ham dominated this game, getting 2 goals from Sebastian Haller in the first 30 minutes. And those goals were actually just 4 minutes apart. So it was just like he couldn't do anything wrong in those minutes. But after that, it just felt like Charlton just didn't, there was nothing they could do after that. West Ham just never looked back and just continued to dominate the game, dominate possession. They couldn't get another goal until, much later in the game from Felipe Anderson. But just the difference in quality was just, apparent right from the start. And, yeah, that gives West Ham the lead going in. And now they go up against Hull City, who had, in my opinion, a huge upset against Leeds United. And that'll be a very interesting match. That's one I'll definitely be looking out for. West Ham versus Hull City to see who can get out on top there and move on to the next round. Next, we have Sheffield Wednesday defeating Rochdale 2-0. Sheffield scored their first goals of the competition here and completely overwhelmed Rochdale. They had 25 shots to Rochdale's 10, 8 shots on targets to their 2, and they had 69% possession. So Sheffield was just absolutely dominating in this game. I mean, they got the goal from Elias Kachunga in the 54th minute, and then just to add a little cherry on top, they got an 88th minute goal from Josh Windass. Now, they looked good. They obviously had a lot of good connections, but they do go up against Fulham, Premier League side Fulham, and they have an opportunity there. That's a really solid draw against a team that's in the Premier League. So obviously they got a team that got a lot more quality than them, but I feel like they have an opportunity here to get into the 4th round of the Carabao Cup and make some noise. Next, we have probably the wildest game in round 2 with Bournemouth defeating Crystal Palace in penalties 11-10. I mean, and when I mean crazy, obviously I do not mean in terms of the scoring, because they were drawn. It was a scoreless draw heading into the penalties. Both teams just forgot to bring their shooting boots in regulation, but the better team did win. Bournemouth outlasted Crystal Palace in a ridiculous penalty shootout. Even the goalkeepers took a shot and neither could get in goal. Both ended up missing after it went 5 for 5 before that, and it ultimately ended 11-10. So Bournemouth are now through, and they get the luxury of taking on Manchester City in the next round. Well, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Next, we have Aston Villa taking on Burton and winning 3-1. Burton got off to an amazing start, getting a second-minute goal from Colin Daniels. But it was all Aston Villa after that, and more specifically, it was all Jack Grealish after that, as we should all know. They were able to tie it up before the half with a 39th minute goal from Ollie Watkins that was set up by Grealish. And in the final, and it looked like it might have probably gone into penalties, but Jack Grealish got the winner in the 80th minute. And then, of course, Keenan Davis with a 92nd minute goal to seal the deal. So now Aston Villa go up against Bristol City in the next round, and I see them probably going through in that one. Next, we have Morecambe defeating Oldham Athletic 1-0. This was a very even matchup. Both clubs getting opportunities at goal, but not being able to convert on many of them. They had 11 shots for Morecambe to 15 for Oldham Athletic, and they each just had 2 shots on target. So the fact that Morecambe was able to get that early goal by Aaron Wildig in the 22nd minute was the one that decided it all. And they now go up against Newcastle in the next round. Next, we got Leyton Orient 3-2 over Plymouth Argyle. And I have to go through these kind of quickly. The goalkeepers on both clubs had a lot of work to do because there were 20-plus shots from each team. But in the end, Leyton was able to get the extra goal in the pretty much the final minutes of the game. Danny Johnson, really nice goal from him. But yeah, and that now they go up against Tottenham in the next round. That's obviously going to be really tough. West Brom defeated Harrogate Town 3-0. West Brom just had way too much quality for Harrogate to handle, and that was all ultimately what it was. I mean, West Brom, they wouldn't be doing this in the Premier League, but they just looked like they had so much swag out there, and that ultimately got them through. Fulham defeated Ipswich Town 1-0. Mitrovic just continuing his strong form for Fulham, getting the goal in the 38th minute. And they now take on Sheffield Wednesday. Brentford defeated Southampton 2-0. Really disappointing from Southampton. I expected more from them, but they had pretty much Brentford just being able to get their shots on goal when it mattered. 5 for 6, like 5 shots on target on their 6 shots. And both came before halftime. So they pretty much had they sealed the deal at halftime. Next, we had Bristol City defeating Northampton Town 4-0. This was just a dominating performance from Bristol City. 15 shots to Northampton's 2, 7 shots on targets to Northampton's 0, and that was pretty much it. Now they take on Aston Villa, and don't really think that's going to go well for them. We had Hull City upsetting Leeds United in penalties 9-8. Leeds United, honestly, they didn't even play well in this game. They got a late equalizer in like the 93rd minute, and they shouldn't even have gone to penalties. But I was just very disappointed with what Leeds United showed in this one. Everton dominated against Salford City, winning 3-0, and they didn't even use a lot of their starters. Michael Keane continues his strong start to the season. Gylfi Sigurdsson with a 74th minute goal, and Moise Keane got a penalty goal in the 87th minute. So Everton just looking as strong as ever. Burnley going through on penalties against Sheffield United. Not a good start for Sheffield United, who obviously wanted to do really well here, but just didn't have the quality up top to really, get them ahead. And in penalties, anything can happen, and Burnley ended up going through. Stoke City pulled off an upset over Wolves, 1-0. The Wolves obviously have more quality, and they showed it throughout this game, but they only got 1 shot on target on their 10 shots. Stoke City just stuck to their game plan and took advantage when they could. And honestly, it was a poor save attempt by the Wolves goalkeeper, but they got that late winner from Jacob Brown in the 86th minute. And last, we have Brighton defeating Portsmouth 4-0. Brighton just looked super dominant in this game. They didn't even use all of their main acquisitions. They did put Veltman into the game, but Lallana wasn't there, and I just feel really positive about Brighton moving into this season. So that's going to wrap it up for the Carabao Cup recap. Make sure you guys stick around, because next I'm going to be talking about what in the heck is going on with PSG so far.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello everyone, welcome back. If you missed it, in the last segment we talked about the Carabao Cup round 2, just recapped all the games real quick, and then obviously talked about the round 3 matchups. Now we are going to be talking about the debacle, the mess, the absolute tragedy that is going on at PSG. If you guys are obviously, if you guys have been watching this for, while I've been on here, you guys should know I am a PSG fan, a huge one. I watch the games when I can, because here in the U.S. it is not easy to get any of those French football clubs, football games, but I mean, I am just struggling to watch this team. It's just hard. It really is hard to watch, because unlike Bayern Munich, who, I'm not trying to diss the Bundesliga, because I feel like the Bundesliga is a really, really good league, even though some might not think that, but I think they're a very high-quality league. They have a lot of good teams. But the thing is, the difference between Bayern Munich and the next best team, even though Borussia Dortmund are really solid, it's huge. It's a huge gap. And the same could be said for PSG and Liga. But the thing is, Bayern Munich don't have the lapses in effort, in, just like their professionalism. It's just not there. And it just continues to always be a problem at PSG. So, quickly, I just want to talk about the games that have gone on so far to start this season. And, PSG, just so you guys know, PSG has lost 2 of their 3 games so far this season. And they have been really, dumb losses. They lost 1-0 to newly promoted side Lens. They lost 1-0 to Marseille, rivals Marseille in Le Classique. And the ending of that game was just ridiculous, which we'll get to soon. And then they finally got a win against Metz with a super lucky late equalizer. I mean, whatever. It was a clean goal. But what I mean by lucky is that it was literally in extra time. They hadn't really connected on much. They had opportunities, but weren't really connecting on them. And just, oh my God, I got a headache just talking about it. I probably shouldn't have picked this as a topic, honestly. But I just really had to talk about this. I really had to really, just grind out what in the world is going on with PSG. And I know most people actually don't like PSG because, it's a lot of that oil money, and people say, oh, they this is what they deserve, they shouldn't be trying to just put a lot of money into the club and that's it. But I mean, how else are they supposed to compete with the top clubs? Honestly, how else are they supposed to compete with the Bayerns, the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids on a regular basis? This is how you do it. It's not their fault that the rest of Liga isn't following suit. I mean, it's not that it's possible for them. They don't have the budget, but still, it's just what do you expect them to do? They have ambitions, and I love that about them. But the thing is that they need to find a structure, a culture. Like, I'm a Heat fan. Like, I live in Miami. I'm a Miami Heat fan. And to see the Miami Heat and then to see PSG, I know this is soccer, and I know I'm talking about basketball, but it's just, the difference is just night and day. Like, the organization doesn't know what they're trying to do. I feel like the players don't respect the coach. I feel like they don't have the composure to really deal with adversity, and all those things are needed in order to really make a name for yourself in the world of soccer. And from this start right here, everything that you saw last season, if you're a PSG fan, everything that you saw last season that got us to the Champions League final, you got to throw it out. You have to throw it out. I know it might be premature to say that, but it's just the truth. This team looks nothing like the team that got us through to the Champions League final. It just doesn't. And I know losing Thiago Silva is one of those things that will really hurt you. But that's what I'm talking about with the fact that this, the way that the board, the management team, they don't know what they're doing up there, because why would you let one of your legends, and also still a really quality player leave when you have no replacement for him? Like, when I first heard that Thiago Silva was leaving the side, I was like, okay, I mean, I understand, he's been here a while, he's starting to get old, but then, so what? That means they have a replacement lined up? Because I love Marquinhos and I love Kimpembe. I even met them here when they came by for, to play in Miami. I actually met Kimpembe and I took a picture with Marquinhos. I was fangirling for him. But, Marquinhos has been used a lot as a center defensive midfielder. And even if you put him back, even if you put him as a center back, those are your two center backs, and that's it. You don't have any depth. You need depth. You can't just have two center backs. They're not going to play every single game of the season. And the depth that they have is a young German, defender who can play all positions in Carreur. But the thing is, he's very mistake prone, even though I was very encouraged with what he gave us in the Champions League final. But you just need an established talent. And if you're not going to do that, you need to change with the times. They have not done that. And what I mean by change with the times is that they need to get fullbacks that are young and fast. Like, that is where this game is going. You need pace. You need guys who can play with Mbappe and Neymar up top. Not Bernat. I know, it sucks that he got injured. He's one of those veterans that you need. Kind of like Herrera and obviously Navas. But in the fullback position, you need youth and pace and, just attacking ability. Bernat gives you that sometimes, but not on a consistent basis. And it's hurting PSG, and you can see it in these losses. I mean, to not even get a goal. I mean, when they took out on Lens, the first game of the season, they only had 8 shots and 2 on target, even though they had 78% possession. I just don't even know. And then remember what I was talking about in the Bundesliga recap, where I like to see tackles, aerials, the defensive stats to see, what kind of effort this team was putting in. Lens had 21 interceptions to PSG's 4, 13 aerials won to PSG's 6, and 25 tackles to PSG's 18. What is that? That's you not trying. That's you taking your foot off the gas pedal, as they always do. And I do not care that they didn't have Neymar, Di Maria, Mbappe, Icardi, Navas, Marquinhos. They didn't have those guys in the lineup in this game against Lens. But that doesn't matter. You still got high-quality players like Verratti, Gay, Herrera, Kimpembe, Sarabia, Carreur. They all started. Yes, you had youngsters like Kais Ruiz and Arnold Muendo, both 17 and 18. I know those are very young and they're thrust into the starting lineup. But when you have the kind of quality that PSG has, you can't be putting up 8 shots, 2 of them on target. Like, that's just no connection in the final third. That's literally saying we cannot do anything. We are a low-quality side when we don't have our top players. And you want to know where that comes down to? The system that you have set does not work. You cannot have a system that you need your star players in order to score something. That just doesn't work. That's not the way football works. You take off your Lewandowski, and look, I'll even go this far. You take out Lewandowski, Mueller, let's see, I'll even take out Gnabry off that team. They're still going to outscore most of their Bundesliga competition. Most, and probably all of them. They probably still win the league even if they don't have those 3 guys. I'm not trying to say that they're not important. They're obviously important, and they're key pieces to doing more, to getting Champions Leagues and all that stuff. But it's because of the way that things are managed, and I guess that does go back to Thomas Tuchel. And you hear rumors that players aren't like trusting him anymore. They feel like he doesn't have the right direction for this team. And in the end, the way that I look, what you have to do to clean that up, you need to sign a world-class manager. One who has experience, one that has reputation, that cannot be doubted. Thomas Tuchel was a very young, mastermind from the Bundesliga when he came on to PSG. He had taken like a year off or something, and he was like really good for Mainz, and I think he was also great for Borussia Dortmund. But that's what he was. He was a young, up-and-coming manager, and for a team and a club as ambitious as PSG, you cannot bring that in. Of course, I was excited when he joined, but you cannot expect your team to just turn around just like that when you bring in a guy like that. You need someone that's got the reputation, a guy that can garner the respect of these players. And one that comes to mind is Zinedine Zidane. When that guy was on the market, he wasn't managing. Of course, now he's back with Real Madrid, but he was coming off 3 back-to-back Champions League winners. I don't care if you have Tuchel in there. You get rid of him. Try to bring in Zidane. He's French. You're telling me he's not going to want to try to take PSG to glory? Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's nothing that can be done to really help this PSG side, but I mean, this is like one of the worst start. This is the worst start since the Qatari era, and one of the worst starts in PSG history. This is the first time they lose both games to start the season since 1984. They dominated play in all 3 games. I mean, they had more possession in all 3 games. But to not be able to have any connection up top, to not be able to, really put it home and really, take advantage of those opportunities, it's just not acceptable. It really isn't. Especially when you consider that yes, I know that first game, they didn't have most of their starters because of that COVID outbreak that the team had. But once in Le Classique versus Marseille, they had Neymar, they had Di Maria back. I know Mbappe is still on being still being quarantined because of COVID, but you just can't, man. And the defense was absolutely terrible against Marseille, allowing Florian Thauvin to get wide open in the back post. I mean, that free kick from Payet was beautiful. It was perfectly placed, but there was absolutely nobody marking Thauvin. Of course it's going to score. These guys are professionals. Navas didn't have a chance against that. But, man, what happened at the end of that game was just embarrassing. I mean, you see Alvaro, I forgot his last name, or maybe that is his last name. You see Alvaro and Neymar, talking back and forth. I mean, you think it's like, all right, you guys are just talking, whatever. Neymar kind of taps him on the head, so you think, all right, fine, maybe everything's fine now. But then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. And then there's a tackle. Kind of a bad one on Marseille's part, but still, I mean, they're playing the game, they're trying to end it because it's already in extra time. And then all of a sudden, it's just a brawl starts. Guys pushing each other, one guy headbutts the other. Another a PSG, I think it was Kurzawa, takes a swipe at one of the Marseille players. And you have to have more composure than that, man. When you're one of the high quality sides in the world, and you're expected to challenge for Champions Leagues year in and year out, you cannot have that kind of composure. I know you got to protect your teammate, and it felt like Marseille was kind of going at Neymar. But Neymar wasn't. What am I trying to say here? He wasn't free of any fault. He was going right back at Alvaro. He's going right back at all the Marseille players. Why do you think he got a red card in that game? In the end, 5 red cards were given out. Kurzawa, Neymar, and Paredes. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, that guy's been a hothead after what he did in the Champions League final. For literally no reason. I'm really not surprised he got a red card. And then on Marseille's side, Amavi and Benedetto got a red card. I mean, you hear what reporters are saying. This is just absolutely embarrassing for French football, and I agree. Yes, there can be, aggressiveness, physicality, but nothing like this. Nothing where people have to be broken up. People are just getting sent off the field left and right, and when the game's already over. It's just ridiculous. And another problem that I see with this PSG team is the fact that they cannot. It feels like when these rumors come out. I mean, I've recently heard a rumor that Mbappe has been saying that he wants to leave after this season, which it's always going to be out there. That's not uncommon. I mean, when you got 2 of the top talents in the world, those things are going to be said. Media outlets are obviously going to want to stir the team up. They don't want, they want those players on bigger clubs. Obviously, people see PSG and Liga as a farmers league. That's just the way it's always been. And of course, Mbappe is eventually going to go off to one of these top clubs. He's going to go probably to Real Madrid or maybe even Liverpool, which would be ridiculous. But you cannot allow that to deter you, to make you feel like things are going to fall apart. And I mean, I still have the faith. I mean, I truly believe this is still one of the deepest teams we've had. Obviously, we need to correct things in the defense, and we got to correct that. Especially now with Bernat gone, we need to sign a fullback. I heard that Leo Hernandez from Bayern Munich wanted to sign with us. Why isn't there any talks there? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what exactly are PSG. I mean, is it because COVID that, I know budgets have been hurting since COVID, so not any team can just go out and sign whoever they want. But, I mean, you're PSG. You got all that oil money. Use it. It's just not right. Things are not looking good there. And it would obviously help if Mbappe's back, but you're not going to have him forever. You're not going to have Neymar forever. You need to figure out ways to win without them. You need to do better than what you have done without them. That's just facts. And if PSG don't figure it out, I mean, they could. I mean, I don't even want to think this, but they're not going to lose out on the Liga. I mean, they're going to win Liga. There's just no way. There is no way they do not win Liga. Maybe there's a little bit more competition, especially after this slow start, if it continues any longer, but and obviously you see Monaco playing well, Saint Etienne, although Monaco seems a little bit more, possibly able to stay consistent. But you need to see more. The problem that I see here is, I mean, PSG can possibly lose out in the group stage. If they're playing this poorly, this early, and group stage comes around, I don't even want to think about them not making it into the knockout rounds, but it's possible. It really is possible. So that's going to wrap it up for this frustrating segment for me. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be giving you guys my top 10 strikers in the world.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I frustratingly talked about the PSG debacle mess that's happening right now. And now we're going to be talking about some better things, some funner things with my top 10 strikers in the world. If you guys have been following along, I've been going through each position in football, and we ended with strikers. I'm kind of wondering what I'm going to be doing next after this, but with strikers, I mean, these are the goal getters, obviously. These are the guys, I mean, you know, they can also be really good at linking up play. Those are the best ones, in my opinion. The ones that can also, you know, get those assists and be a part of the combination attack. But these are your goal getters. Most of these guys are going to be over 20-plus goals. All of them should be over 20-plus goals. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But let's get right into it. Starting with number 10, I was actually I feel like I'm leaving someone out here, but I mean, he just kind of had a bad year. Not a bad year, but just not a year up to his usual standards. But at number 10, we got Luis Suarez. Now, I know Luis Suarez got injured a lot this season, and he was dealing with that, especially late in the year. But I mean, the man still put up 21 goals and 11 assists. He was a sniper when he got his foot on the ball. Completely, 56% of his 102 shots were on target. I mean, but that's kind of expected. I mean, Luis Suarez has been doing this for years. But the thing is, like, a guy that he beat out for this number 10 spot, Sergio Aguero. Sorry, I don't know why I forgot his name, but he just didn't have as good a season. And Luis Suarez, despite being injured, was still a world-class striker. And it sucks what's going on with him now that he's not in Barcelona because Koeman doesn't see him in his plans, and it doesn't look like he'll be able to go to Juve. So it's like, where is this man going to go? But I'll tell you this, whoever gets him is getting a world-class striker. Obviously, he's on the decline, but I mean, he's 32 now, going 33, but he's still really, really great striker. I mean, he's 1.2 key passes, is one of the best on this list. I mean, 76% of his 25 passes per game, nearly a dribble per game, so he can still create for himself and others. Just an excellent overall player, and one any team would be lucky to have. So, number 9, we've got Harry Kane. I mean, it's actually kind of crazy how far he's fallen, because I make this list a year ago, I mean. This guy's probably top 3, maybe top 4, but he's 9th now. That's because he had a very, very down year for Tottenham. And that's saying a lot, because he still had 24 goals. He obviously had some injuries to deal with. I mean, he only had 2 assists, and that's one of the things that kind of makes me feel a little off about him, because he needs to be scoring like 30 plus, 40 plus goals because he is a goal getter. That's strictly what he is. He doesn't get you a lot of, really good passes. I mean, he completes only 68% of his 21 passes a game, a little under, one key pass per game. So he's not really the best at link-up play, but he does create for himself. He does about 1.1 successful dribbles per game. But that's his game. That's what he does. He's a goal scorer, a pure goal scorer at its finest. And Harry Kane, I mean, don't be surprised if you see him, because he's still young. He's still got the best football ahead of him. I mean, hopefully, because he was on a trajectory as he was one of the most valued players in the entire world. So it's been a real big fall back down to earth for Harry Kane, and hopefully he can turn it around for Tottenham because they really need it. Like, they really need world-class Harry Kane to come back and be, at the top of his game in order for them to, really challenge this Premier League that is just improving by the second. And talking about the Premier League improving by the second, number 8, we have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang of Arsenal. I mean, this guy, what a season he had for Arsenal. 29 goals, 3 assists. I mean, the guy can just flat out score. I mean, he was a flat out beast for Arsenal this past season. And the fact that they were able to re-sign him, there's a reason that was their top priority. If they wouldn't have brought him back, then they would not be looking good. Because he's just such a great scorer. He can score in any way you need him to. He'll get headers. He'll get scores outside the box. He's obviously clinical inside the box. And that's very hard to find. That is not something that you get from just about anybody. I mean, obviously on this list you're going to get plenty of those, but that's why Aubameyang comes in at number 8. To do that in the Premier League, the toughest league in the entire world. I had my doubts about him when he first went to Arsenal last season, but he's proven any doubters wrong, obviously including myself. And, I mean, he just makes it happen for Arsenal. And I feel like you're going to get an even better season this year because he has committed himself to their project there and what they're trying to do. And that just does something different for a player. When you are 100% in and ready to stay there for years, you put in a different kind of energy. And I feel like that's what you're going to see from Aubameyang this season. Now, number 7, we have Romelu Lukaku. This guy was possibly outside of the top 10. No, not possibly. He was outside of the top 10 if you talk about what he was doing for Manchester United a year, 2 years ago. But man, did this move to Inter Milan change things around for him, change the narrative on him. He had 34 goals and 6 assists, was a huge reason why they were able to make it to the final in the Europa League and why they were able to get second, just a point behind Juve. I mean, hell, if he would have won the league, he probably would have been higher because he is a huge reason why they were successful this season. 47% of his 128 shots were on target. He completed 70% of his 20 passes per game, had 1.3 key passes per game, and had 2.6 shot-creating actions as well. He's easily the strongest player on this list. Uses that body so well. Literally backs a defender down like he's freaking Shaq in the post. I mean, this guy's a beast, and there's nothing really else I can really say about him except that the fact that he had 34 goals. I mean, that's huge. And then the fact that he's also able to connect with his teammates, which he did so well last season. I mean, and don't get me wrong, if they're able to get Messi next year, obviously he's in Barcelona for one more year, but if they're able to get Messi, well, Lukaku would be on a whole other level because he would have one of the best playmakers on his team. I expect a better season from Lukaku, even though that's kind of hard to believe, even though this is probably one of the best seasons he's had in a long time. I do expect him to have an even better season. But I do not expect him to go up any higher on this list because there's just too much talent coming up. And that's why we are heading into a whole other tier, people. Get ready, because next, number 6, we have Erling Haaland of Borussia Dortmund. I mean, this kid was just exploded onto the scene last year. He had 40 goals, 7 assists, 54% of his 110 shots were on target. And he's a great passer too. I mean, he doesn't pass it often because this guy just straight up gets goals. But he completed 73% of his 9 passes per game. So if he needs to connect, he needs to connect. But the good thing is that he has a lot of playmakers behind him. And, I mean, Haaland just gets goals, man. He's one of the up-and-coming players on this list. Do not be surprised if you see him in the top 3 next season. I'm just being straight up honest. Because this guy is huge. And now he's going to have a full season with Dortmund. He's already scored 2 goals for them in their first game of the season. And I just expect so much from him. Next, we have Timo Werner of Chelsea. This man was an absolute god for RB Leipzig last season, putting up 34 goals, 12 assists, nearly 50% of his 150 shots were on target. And on top of that, he has 1.4 key passes and 1.6 dribbles per game. This is one of the most all-around strikers in the world. The only reason he is not any higher than 5 is because I just need to see more from him in terms of better competition. Again, not shaming the Bundesliga, but I mean, being top 5 is huge, especially for a player of his age. Not many expected him to be this good, this early at least. So if he can do the same thing next season for Chelsea, he would be in my top 3. I don't expect him to do the same thing for Chelsea because the competition is obviously on a different level in the Premier League. But he is going to be one of the best strikers in the world for a long time, and I just expect him to do so much for this Chelsea team. So next, now we have at number 4. No, and this is now getting to another level. This is another tier for you guys. We have Ciro Immobile of Lazio. 39 goals, 9 assists, won the Golden Boot. Not just for Serie A, I'm talking about the world. Because he had the most goals in the domestic. He had, 36 goals in the Serie A. Just an absolutely ridiculous number. 40% of his 150 shots were on target. 77% of his 23 passes per game completed. I mean, so he's great with, the connecting, the build-up play. But this guy just gets goals. This guy is a straight-up goal scorer. I mean, second best goals in his 39 goals are second on this list. I mean, that means a lot. That says a lot. I mean, if it wasn't for one player not being able to play as many games coming up later on this list, he'd probably be like 3rd. But, I mean, Ciro Immobile coming in at number 4, that's a really good spot for him. He could have possibly made third on this list, but I don't know. I just feel like the other guys coming up have just been so consistent for so many years. Not that Immobile hasn't. It's just that with the level of competition that he takes on a regular basis compared to these other guys, or at least, not all 3, but at least 2 of them coming up, it's just not as comparable. So next, number 3, we have Karim Benzema of Real Madrid. This guy was the catalyst for Real Madrid's title-winning season. I know that their defense was the best in the world, but they do not get this title if Karim Benzema doesn't replace Ronaldo's goal-scoring prowess. And not only on that part, he had 27 goals, obviously to lead his club, but he also had 11 assists. So I mean, he was just doing it all for Real Madrid on the offensive end, and while on defense, they had a combination of Casemiro, Sergio Ramos, Courtois, obviously Varane. They had a lot of really solid players. for the Real Madrid attack, I feel like it was Benzema, and that's it. Like, I know they have a lot of quality side. Vinicius Jr., you got Modric, Kroos, helping up top as well. But in terms of just getting those goals, it was all Karim Benzema. And if it really wasn't for him, they wouldn't have won the league. They wouldn't have won the league. And the fact that he also has 1.6 key passes per game, which leads this list, I mean, come on. What else can you say about this guy? He is one of the best strikers in the world and has been and is finally getting the recognition that he deserves. Because, of course, when Ronaldo was here, or, when Ronaldo was in Real Madrid, he was like a second fiddle, wingman to Ronaldo's greatness. And for good reason, obviously. Ronaldo's one of the GOATs. But Benzema is now finally the key man for that team and will be that once again this upcoming season. Next, at number 2, we have Kylian Mbappe. Now, I do not like Mbappe as a striker. I've said it before. I feel like as a winger, he is much better. It makes he gets to utilize his pace a lot more, his dribbling ability, but he might primarily used as a center forward striker type of player. And he had 30 goals and 14 assists. Those 14 assists lead this list. And he's just a sniper. 57% of his 141 shots were on target. 57%. And it's not like he's not shooting it that much. I mean, 141 shots, that's a lot. That's near the tops on this list. I believe that's like third, or I guess fourth on this list because 2 tied with 150. No, sorry, it's fifth on this list. But still, he's putting up numbers. And the fact that he didn't even play that many games last season because Ligue 1 was canceled, with 9 games remaining, he would have definitely put up, I mean, maybe not 40, but he would have put up 35 goals, maybe an extra 3 assists. So, I mean, this guy is obviously one of the up-and-coming players in this league. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's near the top of this list or another list. Maybe if he's, gets played as a winger more in the future. No doubt in my mind he's going to be one of the top guys on any list you put him on. 21 years old, just continues to get better and better. And his 2.2 successful dribbles per game is of course not surprising that it's the top on this list. Because, I mean, this kid can just do it all. Just do it all. So, Kylian Mbappe at number 2, and of course, at number 1, none other than Robert Lewandowski of Bayern Munich. This guy, this season, deserved the Ballon d'Or. There's no other player that would have been in contention. Sure, there would have been 2 other players, as finalists, but Lewandowski, in the end, was the best striker and best player this season. He had 55 goals in all competitions and 10 assists. He completed 48% of his 211 shots were on target. And then on top of that, he also completed 76% of his 22 passes per game. And let me just give you a little more. 1.2 key passes per game, 1.7 dribbles per game. And for a guy of Lewandowski's size, you do not expect him to be that nimble and that great with the ball at his feet. I mean, of course, when he's hitting it, yeah, but when he's creating for himself, absolutely not. But once again, Lewandowski just does it all for Bayern Munich and is one of the best players in the world. It's really a shame that the Ballon d'Or was canceled because he 100% deserved it. 100%. And is literally the main reason. Yes, Bayern Munich had a lot of great players, but Lewandowski was the main reason why they were as successful as they were this season. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed all the content I am bringing to you. And as always, I want you guys to stay safe out there because, there's always, with COVID and all that, just make sure you guys are staying safe. So as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate that. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.